Hey guys, my name is Ethan Buckman. I run marketing here at Freightos, the online freight marketplace. And if you're looking to build something great, you're in the right place. This is episode 2 of Masters of Trade. Masters of Trade is something that we're really pumped about at Freightos. What we're basically doing is taking entrepreneurs and people that have built great businesses and bring them in here to condense their knowledge into just like 30 minutes, drop everything they know so that we can help everybody that wants to grow a business themselves scale it up. So we have some really great people lined up for Masters of Trade over the next couple of episodes. We have someone from Yotpo, the founder of Yotpo. They just raised $50 million. We have someone from Wix, who you probably know from the Super Bowl ads, and some other really incredible entrepreneurs. But Carpe Diem, we are going to seize the expert that we have today, and I'm really pumped about him. We kept on seeing Richard Gilbert speaking at panels about FBA, spoke to Payoneer a lot. We actually use Payoneer internally at Freightos, and once we started looking at what Richard Gilbert has done, we knew that he was a great fit. So just as like a 30 seconds of introduction before we bring him on, he has 20 years of e-commerce experience. So 20 years, zoom back 20 years, Tamagotchis were still a thing, right? So I'm just thinking about my Tamagotchi that I haven't fed for 20 years right now. But he has 20 years of e-commerce and SMB experience, and he's going to take everything he's learned and jam it into like a 30-minute like webinar and serve it to you on a fresh bed of lettuce. So Richard, welcome to Masters of Trade.
Hey, son, how are you?
Awesome. I'm good. Thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Can you see my screen?
I can't see. Oh, there you are.
Oh,
Great
great.
to see you.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, talk to the people that have registered for Masters of Trade. So thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you for having me. It's great to be on. I'm speaking to you from our New York headquarters. It's 1 o'clock here, Eastern Time.
Perfect. Yeah, it's dark out here, but we're still pumped. So yeah, and let's just jump right in. Just a brief overview. I think I forgot to mention this. The structure that we generally do here is a quick little interview. After that, we'll let Richard talk a little bit about a couple of the tips that he's picked up over the course of his journey as helping small and mid-sized businesses scale up. We'll move over to some questions that we've gotten in advance before the show, and then we'll let Richard talk a little bit about what Payoneer does and how they help customers. So I mean, let's just jump right in. Richard, anybody can just like look at your LinkedIn profile, and there is just a who's who of incredible technology companies. Net2Phone, going back a little bit, Google, Infusionsoft, and now Payoneer. Give us the 60-second or 120-second download of the journey that you've taken in the technology world.
Sure. So yes, it's since I guess 20 years of technology experience, a lot of it in e-commerce. But even before that, actually, earlier in my career, I spent 9 years as a strategy consultant with Booz Allen and then with Price Waterhouse, and that was really for me very formative. It gave me a foundation for the direction of where I've taken my career thus far. Provided me with a lot of just the core knowledge and understanding of what is business and how does a business differentiate itself. I got put on a number of different projects, from restructuring and headcount reduction, cost reduction type projects, to growth-oriented business development type projects, and it was those latter projects that really I gravitated towards and really enjoyed. This is, by the way, the mid-1990s.
I could see why a growth program would be a little bit more fun than a headcount reduction program.
Yeah, because you're dealing with people. You're in every one of these cases. I learned at a very early stage. You have to work with your client. You have to interview your client. And so you're affecting people's lives. You're affecting the business. And so for me, I just enjoyed sort of the entrepreneurial spirit of looking at opportunities out there, mapping the competitive environment, and identifying opportunities that leverage the core competency of our client. I've taken that throughout my career. That's a very important theme that really got me involved with e-commerce back in 1997. I actually went to my Price Waterhouse partners and I said, this is 1997, by the way. This was, I mean, this was Netscape. This was AOL dial-up years, right?
Yeah, it's
And
a different internet. Yeah.
I was trying to make the case to my partners, where I was a senior manager at the time, that we should build an internet practice. And
Hmm.
they kind of sort of poo-pooed it and said, it's just those companies are too small, they're not sustainable, and it's not the kind of type of companies that Price Waterhouse or Big Four go after. They go after Fortune 500 type companies.
Hmm.
So lo and behold, I got recruited and found the opportunity to work for a dot-com, an early e-commerce company that, interesting, was founded literally a month after Amazon.com was. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's great.
early
And
stages. You talked about I forget the device you said that you
a
were interested in.
Tamagotchi. Oh yeah,
Atomic.
that little like handheld pet. I love that guy so much. I had it for I think for 2 weeks. I paid attention to it, and then it died away.
So
And then
the
got
big
it.
craze, we're in the Q4 season, and I remember for the e-commerce company that I worked for, Q4 was absolutely crazy. I mean, we were
Mhm.
working and we were fulfilling orders on our own, literally, boxing things up and sending them out the door, right? And
Yeah.
the big product back then in 1998 was, I don't know if you remember this product. It was called a Furby,
Oh,
and
of course. Those were kind of creepy. Yeah. The things
and
with the eyes that just like pop open. Yeah.
we were running out of Furbies, and we were trying to source them from all over the place. And on the internet, the arbitrage that was happening was just amazing. I mean, we were buying them at $20, and we were able to sell them because even Toys R Us didn't have them. We were able to sell
Mhm.
them for $125. It was amazing.
That's
But that,
I
that was
think
the
that's
Wild West.
Yeah, and that's such a common like a theme that I hear from so many people. I know I had spoken to somebody that was involved in Priceline in the early days, and they were talking to me. That was before OTAs could just book tickets online from these from airlines, and they were talking about how they would just like rack up 50 credit cards at the company and would just go out and buy 30, 40 seats on any airplane and just like flip those seats. I
Yeah,
think that so many of these like companies just get started by people just going out and buying anything they can get their hands on and pushing it out.
absolutely. Just bootstrapping it, running it, and then just trying to figure out how to scale it, one step at a time.
Right. And then from that e-commerce company back in
Yep.
'98.
So along March of 2000 was a very infamous date. That was the time in which the dot-com bubble burst, and
Mhm.
many of the dot-coms, eToys, CD Now, a lot of them just sort of imploded.
Right.
Um, Cybershop, the company I worked for at the time, also was preparing to scale itself down as well. We were not able to raise any additional capital, and we just
Hmm.
weren't scaling and growing at the pace that we should have been.
Hmm. Cool. And then you found your way to Google at that point, like or
No, no.
Net,
So
and then I'm
yes,
just always
basically,
Google obsessed. That's just me. Yeah. Okay.
that's okay. A lot of people are. My career really has sort of been to try and follow these different trends. So e-commerce was a very important trend.
Right.
Voice over IP also was a very important trend. So and I was hired basically by net which is one of the pioneers of voice over IP, to build an entirely new business model that would help cable operators offer the triple play. Back
Hmm.
in 2000s, cable operators offered video, and then they offered high-speed data. And it wasn't really until 2002, 2004 that cable operators started offering a phone solution as well, what's now called the triple play. And I helped build a business model and a plan, a go-to-market strategy around an MSP, a managed service provider, that would help enable small tier to middle tier cable operators to offer a voice solution.
Right.
And
And then yeah,
okay,
you flipped over at some point you flipped over towards more of a support role for SMB companies, right? That was like a big. I'm just like looking at your profile, like that was a
yep.
shift, right?
So during that, now obviously the voice over IP play that we were building for cable operators was very residential oriented, so it was more what I would call B2C type of orientation. But
Hmm.
what was quickly becoming apparent was the cable operators were wishing to solve for the needs for small and medium-sized businesses within their footprint, within their cable plant.
Hmm.
And so they were asking of me, hey, can you guys design a 2, 4, 6, 8 line solution along with the appropriate features that would be needed for a business? So that was my first exposure, really dealing with small and medium-sized businesses and really trying to understand what their needs, what their requirements were. and I started to really build some empathy around the need for a small business. And small businesses are, it's hard to be a small business owner. It's a very lonely job, and their needs are plentiful, from technology needs to marketing needs to operational support and staffing needs.
Right.
And so after the net2phone opportunity, I did some consulting for a couple of years, then found an opportunity to work for Google's SMB marketing team. And there I was able to really delve into sort of, and understand and appreciate the opportunity and the power of the Google AdWords platform. That was the division I worked for, the AdWords group, that's 90-95% of the business of Google. And my role there was specifically geared towards working with other large companies to facilitate co-marketing partnerships. So companies that had large franchises of SMBs, we would try to engage in co-marketing activities together to drive more AdWords acquisitions.
And that's become such like a fundamental part of how so many companies go to market, just working together with different companies. An interesting thing that came up when we were talking a little bit last week, you mentioned a lot about how different roles you've been helping SMB scale. And one thing that stuck out was that you have your experience from working at Google, you have experience working at startups, and I think that definitely at Freightos, but almost any small startup looks out at these behemoths, right, at the Amazons and Googles, and just doesn't know how they can outmaneuver them, right? Like even if you're an FBA seller, you're a small FBA seller, you're just getting started, there's some guys that have just been out there for years, these large companies. As a small company and a small SMB, what advantages do you have that you can use to outmaneuver a really, really large company?
Oh, it's speed to market. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and one of the reasons I know everyone's been asking this question, they're curious, Google's such a great company, what an awesome place, and it is. It's a fantastic company, a great place to work, and I really enjoyed it. On the business side, it actually moves quite slowly. There's a lot of bureaucracy associated with a company the size and scale of Google. And although their technology is amazing and the things that they're doing are amazing at scale, there are opportunities for smaller businesses to outwit the behemoths. And it's really finding your niche and then just do it now, get it done quickly. MVP as much as possible. Try things and test quickly, and then iterate and move on. And that's really the advantage and the opportunity that the smaller startups have, is they have the ability to be more nimble and the ability to be able to change quickly.
And a lot of that, I'm sure, just comes from being so close to the customer, right? I remember when we first launched our marketplace, and I think the first person that booked a shipment with Freightos, I think the first time you sell anything, you're kind of surprised. You're like, whoa, I didn't realize that would happen. And we were able to just get on the phone with that person and say, what did you like? What didn't you like? So probably when you're a smaller company and you could be so close to your customer and be attuned to them, that really helps those agile shifts that you're talking about.
There's no doubt about it. There's nothing to me, one of the great things that I love about my job, and I didn't have this opportunity that much at Google, quite frankly. We ran a few events at Google, and some of those face-to-face events I was actually able to meet the SMB, meet that small business owner, but being able to ask those critical, seminal questions, what keeps you up at night? What are some of the problems you're trying to face, and how can my company sort of address those problems? That to me is the greatest opportunity, is to meet the customer, speak with them, understand their business, and try to figure out how you can help improve it for them.
Right, and I love that all those examples of questions that you just brought up have nothing to do with your product, right? It doesn't need to do, when you start engaging with them, you don't need to talk about what you do, you don't need to talk about what your solution is. You're just getting to know your customer and figuring out what's broken by them, so that you can get in there. I think before we move on to the tips, another interesting thing that came up when I was speaking to you last week was that at almost every company you've been at, I felt like there was an opportunity that you identified and you just started pursuing, right? Like you're working at Net2Phone and you realize that there's an additional market and you go after that market. And as an entrepreneur, a small company that has the ability to be agile, you probably identify a million different opportunities. Right? So how do you
Yes.
choose what the right opportunity is and what you like? Do you go after sourcing Bluetooth headsets or after sourcing laptop stands? Right? Every single thing's an opportunity. How do you filter out the flack and just like focus on what can really drive business?
It's a great question, and a good friend of mine who will remain nameless, but he's someone that he and I have been doing this together for many, many years. We've known each other at the various companies we've both been working for. He said, sometimes in the role of business development, you feel like a Labrador Retriever with 12 tennis balls, and you don't know which one to pick up. I actually have a Labrador Retriever, so I can say honestly that that is the case with our puppy. But the need to focus and really identify which of the key priorities is so important in this type of a role for any entrepreneur. Because you can with all of the different opportunities that are out there, it can be dilutive, and you can basically spin your wheels and not get anything done. Ultimately, to your earlier point, how do you beat the behemoths? You need to execute, and you need to execute flawlessly. And to do that, it requires focus and requires, identifying the key item, that one opportunity that you think is the best opportunity, and pursue it to the nth degree.
Mm-hmm. So it's less about taking 10 opportunities, filtering it down to 3, and putting 33% of your assets into each one of those opportunities, and more about distilling it down to that one golden opportunity and just pushing all in.
No, I mean, look, I admit that when it comes to business, I can be just as ADD as the next person, and
Right.
so and because I'm an opportunist, I'm always going to be looking out at the horizon at some other opportunities. So, of the 9 opportunities, yeah, distill it down to maybe 3, maybe 4. I actually, the another company I worked for. Infusionsoft, they were very, very good about making sure that all of everyone in the company, from the lowest level all the way to the executive, that they focused on 3 objectives. We called it our big 3. So I think, and then within those big 3, within the 3 different opportunities that you have, obviously you give one of them more priority, and the other 2 are more aspirational or in the horizon.
Were those 3? That's an interesting concept. Were those 3 uh, ideas or big 3? Were those all unified across the entire company, or did everybody choose their specific big 3? Like, how did that play out?
Yeah, so it started at the top, and it was completely integrated into the overall strategic planning process, the annual planning process. So there would
Hmm.
be a big 3 for the company, and then some way, shape, or form, the every employee would have to tie, their big 3 to the company's big 3.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. We try to do something similar. We try to like everybody comes in every week with like the 6 things they're trying to accomplish, but taking that to a higher level and just saying my entire job is related to these 3 things. I think that's a really cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
Um, cool. So let's jump in. We asked Richard to come up with 4 tips. That if you could come up with 4 really actionable tips that somebody could take, get off of the webinar, go out there and build their business with those tips. So that's a big ask. But we sent them out with that task. I'll turn the microphone over to you, Richard. Just let you walk us through what you would tell a entrepreneur if they were looking out to build their business.
Sure. So I alluded to it before. The small business owner, the entrepreneur, it can be a very lonely job.
Hmm.
Sometimes, if you have employees, you feel wholly responsible for those employees. You feel responsible for making sure that, the business is operating correctly with your customers, that things are doing well. But, I often will recommend, to entrepreneurs, don't go it alone.
Hmm.
Leverage your employees, work with them. Don't think that don't be inside your head all the time and think that, you know, everything, that all the ideas, all the answers have to come from you. Ask questions not only of of your employees, of your customers, of your partners, and seek their advice, seek opportunity to spread the work and spread the wealth. So yeah, don't go it alone, I think, is a very it's a very big concept, and it's got lots of different sort of directions it can go in. But the idea
What,
is that yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, what if you are alone, right? There's so many people that they're just getting started. They're a one-person shop. What do you do?
Listen, there still are resources or opportunities for you to distribute the work, whether it's a virtual assistant or freelancers. So we live in a digital world. One of the reasons why Payoneer exists is because we recognize very quickly that in this digital world that we're in, marketplaces of all sorts are forming, whether it's Upwork or Fiverr or Amazon, and all of these different marketplaces are bringing buyers and sellers together. And it's because it's become so frictionless and so seamless that there is the opportunity now for these networks to be available to make it easier for that lonely entrepreneur to get some help.
So no one's alone. I like that. It's comforting. Cool. All right, tip 2. Let's do it.
Tip number 2 is talk to your customers. I also alluded to this. It's one of the things I'm most grateful for, having worked as a strategy consultant, is that we had to build interview guides and we had to interview our clients, and it gave me an overall skill set and understanding and appreciation for how to speak to my customer or client and really demonstrate engagement, really learn from them, understand what problems they're facing, and extrapolate those conversations into making my product or service better. So I encourage you always, as a business owner or entrepreneur, to engage with your customer as much as possible. In the end, it will come back and play yourself forward, fourfold, because the customer appreciates the fact that you're listening to them and appreciates the fact that that you care.
Right. Yeah. And I think that one of my favorite parts of going to trade shows is you get out there and you're talking and you're pitching your product, and at some point, inevitably somebody walks by and they're like, "Hey, you're the guy from Fredo's. We use you." And I just like dump the people, the prospects, and I just start talking to these people. And it's so fun to hear that and to hear what their life is like, hear what products there are, and you get these like little insights into, oh, I love your product, but this little thing doesn't work for us, or one of the things I wish you guys would do is X, Y, or Z, and that just like that builds up the pipeline for how you can expand down the line. Great tip.
One other thing that I found a really great question to ask is, I really do take care in trying to understand and learn my client's business. I was speaking with one very successful Amazon client of ours who's expanded all throughout Pan-European, and I asked him, I said, what would you do differently? And it's such a great question to ask.
Yes.
You've acknowledged that the client is very successful at what they've done, but along the way, I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and we're always learning. And just asking that very vulnerable question, what would you do differently, is a great question to ask. And in this case, I learned that if he had to do it over again, he would not have incrementally grown throughout Europe. He started in the UK, then went to Germany, then went to France, sort of that overall progression based on the size of the different Amazon markets. He found that he really missed out on opportunity not expanding to Italy and Spain more quickly, because in those markets, interestingly enough, and I didn't know this, the e-commerce infrastructure, the fact that Amazon has Prime in those particular markets is a huge advantage. There are no other sort of Prime-like type substitutes in Spain and in Italy. So his turnover in those countries, albeit a little smaller, was a lot faster, and his growth rate was a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think that one of the ABCs that I'm always told when you're talking to customers is those open-ended questions are gold. It's not just the yes or no. You just you give them the stage, and you just let them kind of spill it out. Great, yeah, great tip. So number 3.
Okay, so this gets to my 20 years of business development experience, and especially around around partnerships and doing deals. I, Sometimes people feel that it's a good thing to have an exclusive arrangement with a partner. I've found that exclusivity can be very challenging to manage and to navigate, and especially in this fast-paced world of technology that we're in today, where circumstances and things are changing on a daily basis. I would be very skeptical of any kind of an exclusive deal. The way I like to operate with my partners is first and foremost with just absolute transparency, and let them know that I may be speaking with you, but I may also be speaking with a competitor or one that's sort of indirectly competing with you. And the reason for that is that I need to be able to serve all of my customers, and my customers may be using you or they may be using someone else. And because we're in this case we're a payments company, it's very hard for us to be exclusive. And ultimately the phrase I like to use is cream always rises to the top. And what I mean by that is that between two partners, if the level of engagement is there, if the synergy, the implicit synergy between the two partners and what they're trying to do in their go-to-market plans is there and well-defined and executed, that there's no need for exclusivity. That the partnership itself will evolve to a point where it's scaling and operating beautifully.
And mutually beneficial because everybody's getting value, right?
Exactly.
Cool.
So
okay, sorry about that. So we're running short on time, so I just want to make sure that we keep on moving so that we get time to talk about pay. No, it's all good. It's my fault. You're saying interesting things. I keep on asking questions about it. Let's pump on to number 4, and I just want to make sure that we leave enough time to talk about Payoneer here too.
Oh yeah. So okay, do more with what you got. I'll be quick on this one, but so often entrepreneurs want to write a checkbook and go buy more Google ads, or go get new leads, or or buy some new technology. Ultimately, when you look at sort of the plethora of things that you have to do, recognize that you've already built some assets. You have a customer database, for instance, right? So instead of going out and buying more leads, maybe there are things you can do with that customer database. If you're engaging them, maybe you can build a referral program and ask for referrals. So the whole idea here is look at your existing assets, look at what you have in your business today, and do more with that rather than going out and buying new and spending on new things.
Right, and that's what people always talk about. I mean, retaining a customer is always going to be cheaper than getting a new customer, right? It's just like it's there, it's lying, and just like look at what you have in front of you. I think we have time for one of the questions. Maybe we'll ask Richard. I'll ask you that. We'll email you the questions that we don't get to afterwards, and we can distribute them afterwards to the audience. I think one of the more interesting questions that we came across was when you're just getting started at a business. Is it bad? What do you think? Do you think it's a right decision to try and scale up a business without necessarily taking the profits or paying yourself and just like throwing that back into the business to scale quickly?
It's so funny. I'm actually rereading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich right now. And one of the elements of that book is this notion of scarcity, of fear, of not being able to pay the bills. And so I think it's important for a business owner to pay themselves, within reason. Obviously you're certainly putting in a ton of sweat equity. You have the IP of the business itself. But I think that within reason, that there's certainly the business owner should be paying themselves, or at least plowing those profits back into the business. That's their choice. But I think that you can only get up in the morning and have a healthy attitude towards business if you yourself feel like you're gaining riches from the business as well. So I think it's important to pay themselves.
Okay, interesting. All right, we'll skip the question and let's just jump in a little bit. Freightos is a Payoneer user. We're happy we use that to make sure that we can service our entire customer base. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what it is that Payoneer does and how you guys could help them grow?
Sure. Can you just go to the next slide, please? So really quickly, we happen to be a very big company, over 1,000 employees and scaling really nicely. We just announced a new investor in China, actually, just this week. Our investments are way over 200 million in terms of what amount we've raised.
Wow,
I looked at our numbers actually just today. We actually have close to 70,000 Amazon sellers that are active on our platform. So
that's an
we're
amazing
we're
number.
we're we're growing by about 2,000 a month, which is just amazing.
Hmm.
The business is a worldwide business. We have operations. Can you go to the next slide? We have operations in 14 different countries. Our headquarters is here in New York. Our operational hub is next door to you guys in Tel Aviv, Israel, and then we
Hmm.
have another operational hub in Hong Kong, where we have follow the sun 24/7 customer support. What
Hmm.
we do basically is we provide Amazon sellers with the ability to be able to collect locally in any Amazon market. So if you're selling in Amazon UK, Amazon Canada, Amazon Japan, Amazon China, now actually Amazon Australia, this slide needs to be updated as well. We give the seller the ability to collect in that local account with a virtual bank account for each of those different currencies. What I like to say often is that we offer I'm sorry, if you go back one sec.
Yeah,
We
sorry about
offer
that. Okay.
we give our sellers the ability to collect in local currency. We also give them the ability to pay, to use their accounts to pay, whether it's paying their VAT or paying local suppliers. And we also give them the chance and the opportunity to grow, and that's growth through our partnerships, the various different marketplaces that we support, as
Mhm.
well as the various different types of Amazon-oriented partnerships like the one we have with Freightos.
And this must be becoming so much more important as international marketplaces, especially Amazon's international marketplace take out, right? We see more people that were importing exclusively from China to the United States that are suddenly sending their cargo the exact other direction, right? Going back to Europe. And as Amazon expands, helping companies that have really established themselves as a force majeure a powerful force in one specific country to expand to the other, this is probably the most complicated aspect. So I think that must be a huge boon for you guys, right?
It's very exciting. It's so exciting to see how we're helping enable cross-border commerce and this growth happening on a worldwide basis.
Fantastic. Great.
And then
Okay.
I think we can end there. This is just, again, we focus on all the different Amazon markets. This is a fairly dated slide now. Amazon Australia now is up and running, and we support that market as well. The only market that we don't yet support is the Indian rupee for Amazon India, and a lot of
Mhm.
that just has to do with just the level of complications in the regulatory environment in India at this point. But we
Mhm.
basically support the currencies of all the other Amazon markets.
I always look at world maps. I grew up playing Risk a lot, and I
So did
always
I.
every time I
Love
see a
that
world
game.
map, I kind of think of if I had those countries, where would I be in Risk? And I know well enough that if you have that type of position, you're going to win. It might take a while, but you're going to end up ahead. So I think that Payoneer's on the right track.
Yeah, the one that's on this map that I really always wanted to get in Risk was Siam, because you can basically from Australia to Siam, you could then build out and take over all of of Asia.
So yeah, I used to play with my grandfather's board, so I always went after Kamchatka. I never managed to find it in real life, right? It's just like one of these elusive countries that like you never come across, but yeah, it's there online somewhere. Anyways,
Very
Richard,
cool.
thank you so much for taking the time. This has been really, really informative, and I think that there's all these people that talk about the hustle of a entrepreneur right out of college that's just building up a business, and it's so nice to talk to somebody who brings like real experience, like the deep experience of working with a bunch of businesses and helping them grow. So thank you so much for your time. We'll be shooting you an email oh, I'm sorry, did I skip that last slide?
That's okay. It's okay. It's
Okay,
fine.
cool. Okay, so we'll be shooting you an email with the other questions that we had. We'll send them out to everybody who participated. Uh, Again, everybody else, we have a great lineup of episodes coming up. Again, I think that next week we have Feedvisor. It'll be fantastic. We'll be sending out the invite later on today. If you haven't done this yet, if you only signed up for this specific webinar, head to freightos.com/masters. Make sure you drop your email there. We'll be sending out bonus content. We'll be sending out the videos. Thank you very much. Huge amount of luck building your business. And thank you again, Richard.
Anytime. Thank you very much. It's been great.
All right.
Really enjoy working with you.
Fantastic. Cheers. All right. Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.